Hello from Norway. This is Johan. At it again, telling you another Nordic UFO story. And this story I'm about to tell you now is from the far north, from a small town called Alta in the northern part of Norway. It happened on Thursday, the 14th of October, 1982, between 2 and 2:30 a.m. And the witnesses are Ulf Kivikjärvi, John E. Hegge, and Hegge Senior, together with Willy Selnes. The nature of sighting: 3 points of lights sending out rays together with a luminous ellipsoid. The night between 13th and 14th of October 1982 was dark and the sky was clear and fine. So shortly after 2 a.m., 3 points of light appeared over the mountains southeast of the center of Alta, a small town situated in the northernmost part of Norway. Each point of light was made up of several smaller lights bounced close together, like a block of flats seen at a long distance. They moved in a northerly direction at a great speed, apparently about 70 to 80 kilometers in some 5 seconds, i.e. around 55,000 kilometers per hour. They had no kind of tail, and the diameter of each light point was about 1/3 of that of the moon. The objects halted northeast of the center of Alta. Suddenly, light rays flashed down at an angle toward the ground simultaneously from all 3 objects. The light rays made up cones with an opening angle about 15 degrees. Their color was white with a bluish hue, especially at the sides. The light was indescribably powerful. After 20 to 25 seconds, the rays began to widen as the powerful light also began to diminish in strength. During some 2 to 3 seconds, the cones became an ocean of light with an opening angle of some 180 degrees. Then they went off, one by one, with a separation time of 1 second. At the same moment as the lights went out, there appeared an ellipsoid thing, in quotes, which gave off a faint light, but nevertheless was distinctly visible. The color was pink as a cloud in the sunset, with a deeper colored tone which became grey just underneath the object. It was quite motionless, hanging in the sky for 30 minutes. Then it suddenly disappeared. The object was as large as the distance between the former outmost light points, i.e. 10 to 12 centimeters measured between the thumb and the forefinger on an outstretched arm. The observation was made independently by Willy Selnes, Ulf Kivikjärvi, John E. Hegge, and Hegge Senior. The witnesses estimated that the object or the light points were some 30 kilometers east of Alta and at an altitude of 5,000 to 6,000 meters. Each and all of the observers felt a strange dead silence during the entire observation. They found it extremely difficult to describe how it felt. This is a common phenomenon, especially during close encounters. And we have some comments to this report. The full moon is the size of a pea held between the thumb and the forefinger on an outstretched arm, i.e. 0.5 degrees. The diameter of each of the light points was 1/3 of that of the moon. If the distance was 30 kilometers, then each object's true diameter would be some 90 meters. The giant ellipse at the end of the observations was 10 to 12 centimeters wide. That means about 10 to 12 degrees. If the distance was the same, 30 kilometers, we get an enormous dimension corresponding to a 6 kilometers for the ellipsoid object. According to the testimony, the light points and the ellipsoid could have been the same object. The 3 light points had the same relative distance from each other during the entire observation, and the light cone was turned on simultaneously from all of the 3 points. At the same moment as the light points faded out, the ellipsoid slowly appeared. It had a sharply discernible shape and shadows, which gave an impression of a solid object. Estimated distance to the ellipsoid was some 30 kilometers. The distance to the nearest mountain is about 20 kilometers. The observers couldn't see the area where the light cones touched the ground. That means that the light ellipsoid could not be less than 4 kilometers wide, and each of the light points some 60 meters in diameter. Supposing that the light rays weren't thrown back from the objects. Until this date, this observation remains unidentified. Yeah. Pretty interesting. They also submitted a bunch of pictures. Figure 1, we can see 3 lights in the skies. It was just a few seconds past 2 a.m. and 3 light points appeared over the mountains southeast of Alta. In figure 2, the objects made a halt northeast of the center of Alta. Suddenly, as if from a word of command, 3 powerful light rays flashed at an angle to the ground from all 3 light points. That's pretty crazy. Wow. And figure 3. After 20 to 25 seconds, the light rays began to widen, while their intensity diminished. During 2 to 3 seconds, they became a sea of light with an opening angle of about 180 degrees. And at the same moment as the lights went out, this is on figure 4, there appeared an ellipsoid object. It had the same dimensions as the distance between the outermost light points. That was an interesting sighting. It was some sort of a phenomena caused by 3 points of light that was traveling over the city. Pretty crazy. Alright. And the next story I'm about to tell you is from Finland. And this one is quite a curious one. The title of the story is A Clock-like UFO at Nasijarvi. And it's taken from Ultra magazine number 11, 1983. The place is Niemikyla in Kuru, over the Kukkulans in Nasijarvi Lake. Witnesses Raimo and Terttu Niemela. Nature of sighting: clock-like light phenomenon, disappearing with 2 other lights. Alright. A strange clock-like light phenomena was seen at Niemikyla in Kuru over the Kukkulans in Nasijarvi Lake, the 3rd of September 1983. Nearly 1 hour could Raimo and Terttu Niemela follow the movements of the phenomena from their summer cottage before the light and the two other smaller lights disappeared in the distance. The Niemelas suspect that the cause of these light phenomena was some flying object, a UFO. I woke up 1:15 in the night, says Raimo Niemela. I had all the time slept badly. I got up and noticed the bright blue light by accident through the window. I pulled off the curtains and saw over the opposite beach, some 800 meters away, a big light ball. I decided to go out to the beach to see better. The light was like a clock table. It had 12 blue lights. Their color was similar to that spark which normally gets off from a spark plug. Between position 10 and 2 o'clock there was a reddish yellow light in the clock table. After that I went in and awakened Terttu to see the light. We went together to the beach, and after a while the light started to move quickly with short, sudden movements toward northwest, to the right of us. Terttu went back in because she said she was afraid that the light would come to our beach. She asked me to come in, but I didn't go. Instead I shouted to her to see how much the clock was. I had once read from Alta or UFO-aika, two Finnish UFO magazines, that in this kind of observations the exact time was important. Soon I too went in and the time was then 1:30. I went out again, whereas Terttu stayed inside to see through the window and to shout me the exact time. The light had moved fast several hundred meters toward northwest, all the time under treetop lever. The light was hovering immovable again, perhaps some 1.5 kilometers from me. Suddenly, the light started to move again and made now a W-shaped figure, when it stopped again and became blood red in color. Little blue lights were still around the center, and that yellowish light up there between position 10 and 2. You couldn't distinguish separate lights in the yellowish light. It looked like a compact sheet of light. After a while the vehicle, or whatever it was, switched on two unbelievable bright light beams to enlighten the forest, first to the right and then to the left. In the same moment I shouted to Terttu about the time, and she answered, 1:35. During the change of color and the light beams, the light phenomena was in the same place all the time. After that, the light moved back to where it came from by the same route and made that V-shape once more. When it started to move, the red-yellowish light in the upper part became narrow from 11 to 1 o'clock. Then, making the V-shaped figure, the light was in its lowest 5 meters from the water and in its highest 50 meters above the lake. No sound could be heard at all during the observation. When it had returned to the same place I had seen it first, the light phenomena switched off its yellowish upper light and started slowly to abandon from the forest. When it had disappeared from sight, 2 more smaller blue lights rose from the edge of the forest, first from the right and then from the left. They followed this bigger light and vanished after it. The time was 1:55 when the lights began to recede, and it was 2 a.m. when they vanished. I was awake to 5 o'clock in the morning and I waited that it would come back, but it did not return. Later in the night, inside the cottage, I felt that a bright yellow light beam was directed to my left temple. I said to Terttu, "Wonder what this light is?" But then the beam vanished as soon I had said it. After a while the light reappeared by my temple, and the same happened. After that it did not come back anymore. Afterwards I got a little headache, but I thought it might depend on the exertion of my eyes, due to the fact that I had been looking for a long time into the dark. We have a drawing of the sighting. Figure 1. A represents the clock UFO vanished. B and C, small UFOs, the movement of the clock UFO. Figure 2, a map of the observation place. Figure 3, the appearance of the UFO was red-yellowish, with small blue lights. And the underside apparently had a blood red color to it. My opinion about the light is that it was some flying vehicle. A UFO. I don't believe it was any weather phenomena. The weather was cloudy, you couldn't see the moon or the stars. A gentle wind was blowing from the south. Temperature was plus 18 degrees centigrade. I had checked it on the day. The weather had been sultry and a little bit like thunderstorm. After a couple of days I made some inquiries about the Aitovori radar station, but no notices were found in the diary of events during the actual time. However, the UFO was moving so low that the radar actually couldn't register it. After this event, usually many observations come to the knowledge of our group. Most of them are made near Tampere in August-September 1983. The investigations are still going on when writing this article. A couple of events seem to be connected with Kuru observation. The UFO activity in Finland clearly seems to be more lively. Note by the translator. In the same night as this observation was made, a man disappeared on his way to his working place. He is still missing despite of annonces in the newspapers, and the local police has no clues of his destiny. Hey, maybe he was abducted, who knows? And in accordance to this story, there are observations made by other people, and I will read those as well. Number 1. The 3rd of September 1983, at 0:30 a.m., Tampere, a 58-year-old widow, got up from her bed to take her medicine. She noticed in the northwest light phenomena as big as the moon, which otherwise was round, but a piece was missing in the upper part, just as if it should have been broken or the phenomenon was illuminated from underneath, so that the upper part was shadowed. The color was metallic. The phenomena abandoned from the observer and disappeared behind the roof of the neighboring house. The observations lasted for 10 to 15 minutes. No other witnesses during the time of observation. The moon was under the horizon. Number 2. The 3rd of September 1983 at 11:05 p.m. Tampere. A 50-year-old sergeant major, retired, with a great experience in ground observation corps, observed in the north at an elevation of 30 degrees a moving dark blue object, which he at first thought to be a kite. Then a light was switched on in the front part, sparkling in the beginning like a piece of firework. The form of the object changed to a ball, color of which was yellow, like a traffic sign reflection in the car headlights. And the ball was followed by a blue veil which covered the stars. The phenomena first got closer directly to the observer, but turned a little bit to the right when the sparkling began. When it passed, the yellow ball seemed to have a narrow ring around itself. The object suddenly vanished up in the southeast. The motion was soundless, with sudden short movements. The size of the light was approximately 50 centimeters. The duration of the observation was short, only about 3 seconds. The weather was clear and the object did not illuminate the surroundings. This could have been a meteorite, but due to the great experience of the observer, this is not a very probable explanation. That was interesting. I noticed the way the object moved was according to the first and original report, with short and sudden movements. Like the famous Tic Tac UFO in recent days, if you heard about it. Hope it's not a hoax. Number 3. The 4th of September 1983 at 1 a.m. Tampere. Lily Lathi, a 25-year-old woman, observed through the window of her apartment house a bright yellow light ball, bigger than the moon, which was descending in the southwestern sky. She quickly alarmed her 31-year-old husband and his 19-year-old sister, and they all went to the balcony to see better. However, the light ball had already descended, so much behind the forest that only the upper part of it was visible. The light phenomena continued to descend with decreasing speed and vanished after about 2 minutes down to the right. Over the landing place of this big ball, a light, clearly bigger than a star, was observed, moving slowly to the right and gently downwards, descending behind the forest, while blinking through the trees. The weather was clear and no sound was heard. The total duration of the observation was about 20 meters. The time of the observation rules out the possibility of the moon or stars. No other witnesses. A classic observation of unknown object descending over and down into the forest. Something is going on in the forests. Observation number 4, and this is the final additional witness to this UFO sighting. The 10th of December 1983 at 10 p.m. Ruovesi is the place in Finland. A 25-year-old civil engineer and a woman of the same age were in a boat on the lake. The man was lying on the bottom of the boat looking for the stars, when the woman observed in the northwest, just over the water, a small but bright yellow light in front of, which was like twigs. The man also began to see it, and together they saw how the light, which was shining with constant brightness, at first seemed to get closer to them, when the light became brighter, like a halogen light, and started to rise straight upwards, vanishing very fast without noise or other effects. The observers estimate that the rise upward was made at a distance of about 1.5 kilometers. The duration of the observation was about 10 seconds. I think this was a confirmed sighting of a UFO phenomena over Finland. Lots of witnesses, and it was a clock-like UFO, in the sense that the main UFO had a lot of small blue lights around it, like numbers on the clock. Pretty interesting. A lot was going on. Several of the blue smaller lights were descending down into the forest and ascending again. Pretty strange, if you ask me. I think something was going on. There was some kind of mission or activity taking place here. Intelligently managed. Alright. Hope you liked those 2 stories. And it's many more stories to come. And the next one I will tell is from Sweden. And this is a very interesting story, where a UFO actually causes a human to get paralyzed. So it was a direct interaction of some sort. So stay tuned for that one. Alright. See you later. Goodbye.